YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back, and it's bowl season, and I got a whole bunch of game score predictions for you guys today. We're going to go through all those, break them down. We're going to take a look at some of the lines of the games. I'll eventually have another video kind of summing up my favorite spread picks in terms of these bowl games. Did very well in them last year, so we'll have another one of those videos. Separate video as well that will cover the playoff predictions. This is just covering the bowl games. So a lot to go over here. If you're looking for my college football rankings updated before the bowl games, you can find those in a link in the comments. Also in the comments is our Bowl Mania group. Everyone free to join. Play along. You make your picks, and we'll see who the winner is. So there's a link in the comments in the description for that as well. So a lot of videos, a lot of content to get to here before bowl season. My favorite time of the year for college football, bowl games, and the playoff. Before we get started, 40K, that's our subscriber goal by 2020. Please help us out by subscribing. We're getting pretty close. If you're new here, a bunch of college football content, but we have a whole bunch of NFL content, not just in the season, but even in the offseason, free agency and NFL draft. And we actually have even more content on our Patreon. If you like mock drafts, we have mock drafts updated every single week on the Patreon, along with score predictions for the NFL every week and updated NFL playoff predictions every week. So a lot of extra content going on the Patreon, patreon.com/thegoathouse. There's a link in the description for you guys to check out for more info. But let's start with the Sugar Bowl, All-State Sugar Bowl. I got the Georgia Bulldogs winning this one, maybe a little closer. I was kind of thinking about this one. First thought Georgia should win, pretty solid lead, but I'm starting to think that it could be a little closer. The game's going to be in New Orleans, the Sugar Bowl, of course. So I don't know if that really favors anybody there. Maybe, I would imagine a little more Georgia fans there than Baylor fans. But the question, and we may have to revisit this, kind of the question is, who's going to play for Georgia? We seen guys last year when they're in the bowl game versus Texas, a few key players, impact players, maybe more than a few, sat out, and that kind of hurt them a bit. Kind of a disaster game, a game we expected them to win against Texas. It was a disappointing game. So could something similar happen? The Georgia's is the better team to me. Offensively, you can argue both sides. Statistically, Baylor's probably had a better offense, but Georgia has played much better teams. And defensively, I think Georgia's got them beat pretty good there. So I think a comfortable win in terms of, during the whole game. It's not going to really be a concern that Georgia might lose the game. But Baylor could stick around a bit. I just don't think they can keep up scoring here. 27-20, Georgia Bulldogs. They're also -7, so I kind of had that right there. So that's not one of those spread picks that I absolutely love, because I have them winning by 7 when they're -7. Should be an interesting game, though, so we will see. Again, we can revisit when we find out which top-tier players are sitting out for the NFL draft or just to stay healthy. So we'll see. I got Georgia winning the Sugar Bowl there. We're on to the Rose Bowl. And I'm going to pick the Ducks in this one. I got the Ducks winning 24-23, Oregon over Wisconsin. They are getting 2.5 points, though. Wisconsin is -2.5. And it makes sense that Wisconsin's the favorite to me. They should be the favorite. But kind of looking at the matchup here. Well, and it's West Coast. It's the Rose Bowl, California. So I guess that favors Oregon maybe a little bit. I don't think it matters all that much. But looking at the matchup, I think this could be similar to the Utah game for Oregon. It's a similar style matchup. They didn't fear the pass against Utah. They kind of stacked the box. Their pass rush is getting better and better each week. Kayvon Thibodeau, the beast of a true freshman who's going to be, I think, a future top pick. He's heating up. And I think that can cause problem for Wisconsin. We'll see if Jonathan Taylor plays or if he tries to stay healthy, for the NFL draft. But I think Oregon will do a good job game planning. If Taylor plays, they're not going to completely shut him down, but they're going to slow him down enough, and they're not going to fear the pass. They'll also get a solid pass rush, when Wisconsin does pass. So I think that kind of favors Oregon there. But yeah, kind of looking at the offense, it's just not a whole bunch of trust in these offenses. Herbert has he has great arm talent. just kind of reading defenses, and he's got a tough task against a pretty darn good defense. I think they'll run the ball pretty well, nothing crazy. I just like the matchup for Oregon. I think they match up pretty well, and it's in West Coast. It's a tight game though, tight game. I think Wisconsin's a better team against the field. I think just in terms of this specific matchup, I like Oregon. I like what they did against Utah. Wisconsin did give Ohio State a good run. It was mainly made up of the first half, pretty much all of it in the first half. Oregon could learn a bit from the second half of that game. So this should be a good one. I'm really, for the New Year's games, this is definitely the one I'm looking forward to. Definitely the one. The other ones I'm not a huge fan of, honestly. Georgia, Baylor's pretty solid. But really looking forward to this game. I do like Oregon, even though and they are plus 2.5. But even that being said, don't love it in terms of the line because there is a chance that Oregon could lose the game by 3 or more still. So in plus 2.5, it's a rough spot. So don't really love that one that much. We're on to the next game and a couple Big Ten SEC, 2 in a row Big Ten SEC battles coming up here. Here's one of them. And they're going to be tough tasks for the Big Ten. And as you can see, I have a big win for Alabama, and that's even without Tua, obviously. This team is just full of talents. I know they haven't really beat the best of teams, but that doesn't mean they can't. And they lost to Auburn, unfortunate one, and obviously LSU is the number 1 team in the country. I just think Alabama's a lot better than Michigan, and I also don't think Michigan has the offense to keep up with Alabama. Alabama's defense has struggled here and there, but yeah, going against a LSU, and Auburn's a top-tier team. Even though they have 3 losses, that is a top-tier team. It's a very good team. I like Alabama. I just don't like the way Michigan matches up. The question is, can they keep up scoring? Shea Patterson has to do a lot more than I think he's capable of. Michigan's, their game, they want to run the ball, and I don't think they're going to be able to keep up just continuing to run the ball. Defense could step up, but there's just so much talent in Alabama, and even if guys sit out, there's just unlimited amounts of talents. They're going to be pissed off. They're going to want to win this Citrus Bowl. It's in Orlando, Florida, so I don't really know if that favors it. I'm probably more Alabama fans there, but I don't know if it really favors anybody here in the Citrus Bowl. I just think Alabama's that much better. People sleeping on their defense. Their defense has some playmakers, some first-round playmakers. We'll see who plays. I like them. I like them -7 here. I got them winning by 22. I think could even be more. I really like the Crimson Tide -7. You're telling me they got to win by a touchdown or more than a touchdown for you to make some money off that one? I'm liking that. Unless everybody's sitting out, but again, they have unlimited amount of talent here. I like Alabama a lot. Confused about that matchup. It's not too surprising, but it's not the best matchup. A lot of these bowl games, I'm not really in love with the matchups. And here it is. This is where it gets kind of rough for the Big Ten, going against these SEC powerhouses. And I like Auburn big here. I like them by 20. I really think you can argue that this Auburn defense is a top 3 defense in the country. You could even argue better. It's that good. They gave up some points against them. They held LSU. They held LSU in a pretty good game, but they gave some points to Alabama. Alabama, some ridiculous talent and coaching. But Auburn, top-tier defense. Again, I guess we'll have to see if Derek Brown, guys like that play, and we could revisit here. But it's a dominant defense. It's a well-coached team. Bo Nix is getting better and better each week. He's going to go all out. He's a true freshman. He's going to go all out in this type of bowl game. Minnesota, fun season for Minnesota. Was really impressed. They got some pretty good talent over there too, but I think their record is the way it is because on the easier side of a schedule, I guess. We've seen them struggle, I guess, down the stretch a little bit. Even though there was a win in there with Northwestern, they had the win against Penn State. But I think it's a bad matchup. I really do. I think Auburn's better than them, plain and simple. I think Auburn can hold them, as you can see, to very little scoring, really, and Auburn's really getting going offensively. I don't think Minnesota, they present a pretty solid defense, but they don't present anything that's really going to shut down Auburn here. So I got a big win, and it's 7.5. Obviously, the difference between 7.5 and 7 is big time, but I still really like the Tigers here, -7.5. This should be a pretty big win for them. It's going to be similar to the Wisconsin matchup for Minnesota, but I actually think Auburn is definitely a better team than I do. I think they're clearly the better team. It's not too far off, but I think it's clear that Auburn is the better team. This will be a tough one. for Minnesota for sure. It's the Outback Bowl. The game will be played in Tampa, Florida. Does it really favor somebody? Maybe Auburn a little bit. Nothing crazy there. But yeah, not super thrilled with the matchups on New Year's Day, as you could see. But Big Ten SEC battles could be fun here. Next game is the Alamo Bowl, Utah versus Texas. First glance, I don't like the matchup in terms of, I guess, how these two teams played this year, because one played significantly better. One is more deserving of a better matchup than the other. That is Utah over Texas. But if you look at the actual matchup, being, the Alamo Bowl in Texas, and the matchup itself, the way Texas plays, they play pretty solid defense. Pretty inconsistent, though. I know, disappointing season, pretty inconsistent. But Utah, we see what happens when they match up against Oregon. It's somewhat of a similar matchup, but there is a difference in talent level, Oregon being much better. So I still do have Utah winning because of the better team. Pretty good matchup, though, 24-20. Utah is favored by a touchdown. This is a game that I really don't love, but I don't know if Utah wins by a touchdown. But as you can see, I got them winning by 4. But this game being in Texas makes things interesting, but Utah is the better team. It's just, are they going to fear Huntley on the pass? I think he can make a little more plays than he did against Oregon. I think he can do that. I don't think Texas will have as good of a pass rush as Oregon did. Utah, their offensive line, I do worry about a bit. But, and the way they start, it seems like even the games they end up fine, they kind of start off a little slow. So they got to start off good here. They are the better team. That's why I have them winning, but it's an interesting matchup. 24-20, Utah in the Alamo Bowl, which is in Texas. So that's interesting. Next game is Virginia, Florida. Don't really love the matchup here in the Orange Bowl. Because I think Florida's the much better team. And the game happens to be in Florida. It's going to be in Miami. So, it obviously favors the Gators there, so that's kind of rough. And I think they're the much better team, and that's why they are favored by 13.5 points. And they get a pretty healthy lead, healthy win here in this game. Virginia's pretty sneaky. Bryce Perkins, has his games. Kind of inconsistent, has his games. But they just don't present enough, against this really good defense, and it's in the Gators. But their offense is also an offense that has been getting better as the season went on too. So it almost seemed like they were better with Trask in there, and that's a guy that's going to play to me, and he's going to go all out. So no worries about your quarterback sitting on that one. But Florida, I like them 34-17, pretty big win for them. I just think it's a bad matchup for Virginia. So it's a lot of points, so it's not one that I really, really love, but it's definitely one that I like, because I got to win by 17 points, so definitely one that I like there, because home pretty much for Florida, and then the much better team, so that's an interesting one. Next game is Penn State and Memphis in the Cotton Bowl. I got Penn State winning 27-23. Another one of those games where I don't think Penn State will really be. I don't know if is ever gonna be a doubt they could lose that game. I think they're gonna be pretty comfortable throughout the game, but I think Memphis kind of can keep it closer than people think. So it could be interesting. Obviously, the Cotton Bowl being in Texas, that's going to be in the Cowboys Stadium. So it doesn't really present any home field advantage or any advantage there at all. I like Penn State 27-23. It's a Penn State team that I do think, I have to say, I did not really like them down the stretch of the year. I was not a huge fan down the stretch of the year. Memphis was clutch. I know it's a weaker conference. Penn State's favored by a touchdown. It's not one I would touch. Penn State has much more talent where they should be able to win by more than a touchdown, but I think Memphis could keep things interesting there. But I got Penn State winning in the Cotton Bowl 27-23. Wish there was a little more of a challenge for Penn State, but it could be interesting. Next game is Notre Dame and Iowa State, and the same thing here. I definitely wish there was more of a challenge for Notre Dame here. They ended the year pretty strong, and Iowa State, being 7-5, and Notre Dame's a 2-loss team. I'm surprised Notre Dame's only -3.5. I am a Notre Dame fan, so I can't sit here and say it looks like it's a great game to take, but I am a Notre Dame fan, so I like kind of stay away from my own team there in terms of throwing money at them, but. Yeah, -3.5 looks like a pretty good line. I think it's a good matchup. There was rumors they were going to go against Texas, which I think they're better than Texas too, but I think it's a little better matchup playing against Iowa State. It's just which Iowa State's going to show up. Sometimes they'll struggle to score, and that's even against Big 12 teams. So now you're going against Notre Dame. Notre Dame is real thin on pass rushers, though. That's kind of they're the best of their team too, is pass rush, but their best pass for Julian Okwara, Dalen Hayes, like those guys are hurt. So they did that. They take a hit there, I guess. But I think they're a much better team. I think they're really getting going on offense. We'll see if guys like Chase Claypool, maybe those guys sit out, but I think he'll play. But I think they're better offensively than Iowa State, and they're definitely better defensively. So it causes an interesting matchup. But Camping World Bowl being in Orlando, no advantage either way, in my opinion. I got Notre Dame winning 31-20. It's a disappointing challenge for Notre Dame. It really is. Not that Iowa State's a solid team, but you just expected a little more of a challenge. I'm surprised it's only 3.5. We will see. I got Notre Dame taking care of business in that one, though. Next game is USC and Iowa. I want USC here. So this is a very tough one to pick. Very tough one to pick. And Iowa is favored in this game by 1. This game is in California. That kind of made the difference for me. It's just looking at the matchup, Iowa's got the defense. They got the defense in this. USC's got a little more of the offense, but they're kind of balanced. So that I kind of like that from USC. What would they be like playing a defense like this? They haven't played too much of that. Maybe it could be similar to the Notre Dame game, which they actually made interesting. Could be similar to that. But yeah, Iowa scares me. They're pretty inconsistent. I mean, both teams are inconsistent, but Iowa scares me a little bit. If a game like the Nebraska game is going to come up, which I think it's kind of a similar matchup, and USC's a better team, that could cost them, especially being in California here. So that kind of set the edge for me. I went with USC. This is going to be a good game, though. I'm actually looking forward to this Holiday Bowl in San Diego. I'm looking forward to this one. It's a good game. It's an interesting matchup. These two teams coming together here. I see why Iowa's favored. They've been the better team most of the year. So that's definitely why. But I like the Trojans here. But that's the toss-up game. Really looking forward to that one. Oklahoma State and A&M. I like this one a lot. I like A&M in this one. As you can see, I got a pretty good win for A&M, racking up 37 points, holding Oklahoma State to 24. And they're only -5.5 too. I like that. That's under a touchdown. It's a decent amount under a touchdown too. A&M is a good team. They're not ranked. They have 5 losses, but this is the best 7-5 team you'll ever see. I mean, if you go through their schedule and look at who they lost to, it's ridiculous. Lost to Clemson, lost to Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, and LSU. I mean, that's who they lost to. All SEC teams except for Clemson, who was the number 3 team in the country, and obviously a tough matchup. So A&M, outside of the SEC and outside of Clemson, I think they match up very well with a lot of these teams. I think they can beat a lot of top 25 teams. Their defense, and what helps in this case is their defense has always been the problem. It's kind of been their offense carrying. Their defense actually got better this year. While their offense took a bit of a hit, but I think it only really looks that way is because who they played. Their offense will be fine against this Big 12 defense. Oklahoma State does give up. They score. They do give up some points, though. They give up quite a bit of points. And even though they score, like I said, A&M, their defense is getting better and better. I like them in this game. Texas Bowl on top of it. Texas Bowl. So, I mean, both will be familiar. Obviously, Oklahoma State will be familiar with the area. But I think it definitely does favor Texas A&M. I like them in this game. 37-24. It's a very, very good matchup for them, and I don't think there's any question that they're the better team, even though Oklahoma State's ranked and Texas A&M is not. Just look at the schedule. So A&M, I think, will be fine, playing outside of the SEC here. So I'm looking forward to watching them because I have high hopes for them. Next game is Washington-Boise, which I really like this game. Las Vegas Bowl. Really like this game a lot. Washington's -4. When I saw this matchup, I liked it, and it kind of made me like it more because I thought, I'm going to go with Washington this one, and Boise might be favored. But then when the line actually comes out, I see that Washington's favored. So I thought I was getting a little sneaky, but I really wasn't. I like Washington, but the game really can go either way. Boise, I mean, both teams have been inconsistent, but Boise, really, 1 week it's elite-looking offense, 1 week they're a little slow on offense. So which one are we going to get here? Going against Washington, I think Jacob Eason will play. It's tough that Peterson stepped down. I know there was a high hopes for Washington. Some people thought they were going to finish top 10. They were looking really, really good early. So it's interesting. I think Peterson's a good coach, but it's interesting he's not going to be able to coach here, against Boise State here. Former school, which I always thought Peterson was a hell of a coach. So interesting, but I like Washington. I actually think they have more talent than Boise. Boise's had the softer schedule, and they've kind of had their hiccups here and there, even though they have escaped games. I just think Washington's a better team. You're looking at, what are they? They're 7-5, playing in that Pac-12. They've had some very, very tough losses. It's a good, they put up fights with teams like Oregon. It's a solid team. So I like them winning 34-31. Eason's got to be on his game though, because there's those times where he's only throwing for like 150 yards, and there's games where he's really going off. So some inconsistencies from both of these teams. I like Washington though. I think they're the better. I think they're a more talented team, really. So that should be a good one in the Las Vegas Bowl. Air Force and Washington State. We're going to kind of rip through the rest of these a little faster, but this one I like a lot, as you can see by the line. Air Force is -2.5, so Washington State is getting 2.5 points in the famous Cheez-It Bowl. I like Washington State. Real good offense. Anthony Gordon looking real good. Mike Leach is a hell of a coach. Air Force has been all defense this year. It's one of those top teams statistically in defense, but you look at who they have played, they haven't had too much of a challenge. Washington State is an offensive challenge for anybody in football. So I think that's a bad matchup for Air Force. I think it's a bad matchup for them because Washington State will score. Mike Leach, with this much time, with his solid quarterback, they will run the score up. Can Air Force keep up? I just don't think they can. I was very surprised they are favored by 2.5, so I like this one a lot. Cheez-It Bowl, Washington State, +2.5. I like it. Got them winning 42-31. Appalachian State and UAB, disappointed with this New Orleans Bowl because Appalachian State deserved more of a challenge. So they get to play UAB here, who just got, the FAU handled them pretty well over there in the Conference USA championship game. Appalachian State has had a dominant years. So I like them winning big here. I know 17 points is a lot, but I like them winning big. It's kind of a slap in the face to them that they're putting this bowl game, a lot more expectations on what bowl game they were going to be in. So it's a little disappointing, but I think they'll take care of business. They're a much, much better team, and they'll kind of prove everybody. It's a type of school that's just not going to be disappointed on the field at what bowl game they got. They're going to show everybody that they definitely belonged in better. Wonder what would have happened if they didn't lose that one game. It was a Georgia Southern, so makes things interesting. But they'll have no problem against UAB. It's another one of those disappointing bowl games, the New Orleans Bowl here. Indiana and Tennessee, the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. I like the Vols in this one. They've gotten a lot better since the beginning of the season. A lot better on both sides of the ball, mainly defense. It's tough deciding what type of game this is going to be. It very well could be a defensive game. I got it in the middle here. It really could be anything. It's not going to surprise me at what type of game this is. I'm just confident in Tennessee winning around this scoreline. Indiana's had kind of on the easier side of the schedule. Haven't, besides the top tier Big Ten teams, haven't really had too much of a challenge. They look good against other teams, but Tennessee's actually a threat now. They're actually a challenge. They're getting a lot better. I like them a lot in this game, and they're only -1.5. I like the Vols in this game. Definitely should be an interesting one. SEC versus Big Ten, kind of middle of the pack for those conferences. But in Jacksonville, Florida, maybe a slight edge to Tennessee in terms of their fans. Maybe more than slight. But I like the Vols in this one. I think they're getting better. I like what I saw from them at the end of the year to make that bowl game push. And it almost looked like, it was a little scary. But then at the end of the year, it almost looked like it was pretty easy for them to get into a bowl game here. So I like what they're doing down the stretch here. I like Tennessee. Cincinnati and Boston College, kind of a weird matchup. Expected much better for Cincinnati, more of a challenge. I get them winning 31-20. Boston College is a sneaky team. They got better at the end of the year, upsetting Pittsburgh. But do they have enough offense? It's all about running the ball for them. I like Cincinnati winning this one 31-20, and they're -6.5. I don't love that one, but I kind of like that it's just under a touchdown, though. And that is the Ticket Smarter Bowl. Some weird bowls coming up here. Kansas State and Navy. Interesting game, too. Navy being ranked. I like this Kansas State team. It was ranked at times for a reason. They beat Oklahoma for a reason. It's a pretty well-balanced team. It's a good team. They just got to stay consistent. It's like kind of they get hot, and then the next week they go cold. But the good thing is they get a pretty good break, and I think that helps them a lot here. Navy, watching them again, we see them around the AAC, and they look pretty good, and they go play Notre Dame. I know Kansas State's not Notre Dame, but they go play Notre Dame, and Navy look like, they weren't even close to matching their record. Not even their season wasn't even close. So Kansas State, I think, is a pretty good football team. I like them in this game. I think they'll be able to score no problem, and it's a pretty good defensive Big 12 team. So I think, somewhat high score. I think they'll struggle against that Navy-type offense, though. Because it's something they haven't seen. They haven't seen that triple option, the speed option. So I do like the defense, and I think it'll make that extra play. but they may struggle to game plan against that offense. But I think they'll be fine offensively here in that Liberty Bowl. So I do like Kansas State, and they're only -1, so that's an interesting one for sure. But Navy is ranked, Kansas State's not, so maybe people don't like it for that reason. But the rankings, once you start getting into the 20s, don't really mean much to me. Arizona State and Florida State in the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Yes, that's what it is. Arizona State's -5.5, and I like them in that one. Arizona State's a good team. Kind of shows the Pac-12 is a little underrated there. No free wins. Anybody can pretty much beat anybody, so I kind of like that. Arizona State getting better and better, obviously, with their freshman quarterback. Florida State, kind of surprising to end up in the bowl game here when we're at this point. But I like Arizona State. I like them better on both sides of the ball. I think they'll take care of business here in the Sun Bowl and win the game by 10 points when they are favored by only 5.5, under a touchdown. I like that. I think they'll be able to take care of business here. So I expect Arizona State to win in Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Like the logo there for the bowl game. But Arizona State, 31-21. Virginia Tech, Kentucky. This is one of the closer games, one of the toss-up games. The Belk Bowl. I went with VTech, but again, they are favored by 3, and I ended up winning by 3, so it's real close right there. But this is a toss-up game, tough one to pick. Kentucky inconsistent. 1 week looking real good. Ending the season off real strong against Louisville, a dominant win. And you see when SEC goes outside of the box, kind of get an idea. So that is, SEC versus ACC. That kind of sides with Kentucky here. Virginia Tech, though, they got real hot at the end of the season. When they got Hendon Hooker at quarterback, the offense looked a lot better, and even the defense looked better. I don't know what happened in that Virginia game. That was kind of surprising to me. Kind of surprising. The defense kind of let them down in the second half. That was kind of surprising, I think, with the time off, the ability to game plan, Hooker not being their quarterback the whole way, this solid break to be able to game plan. I think that helps them. I really like Virginia Tech at the end of the season. So I'm kind of going to stick with that there here in this Belk Bowl. But this is probably one of the tougher games to pick out of all of them. This game is in North Carolina for the Belk Bowl, but I got Virginia Tech. It's going to be a good one of those ones I'm looking forward to for sure. Illinois and California, it's a cool game because they're pretty much similar style teams. They're defensive teams. It's weird seeing Illinois in a bowl game. It's just really weird, but they picked it up. They got some guys healthy, and they upset Wisconsin, and they were kind of getting better. Than confused about the Northwestern game. I thought they were going to lock that one up for sure, but they couldn't hang on to that one. Very disappointing game, but a defensive game for the most part. I just think California's better. You look at the defenses. It's hard to split the two up. It's hard to, Illinois actually. They get some takeaways. So you can actually give the edge to Illinois with the defense, but I definitely, even though Cal doesn't have a crazy offense or anything, like I said, they're a defensive Pac-12 team. I definitely give the edge in terms of offense to California here. So I got them winning by 10. They even could be more, maybe 27-14. It could even be somewhere along those lines. And the game happens to be at the Niners field there in California, so that helps them out even more. So the more I'm talking about this, I think Cal could actually get some more offense going. But Illinois does have a very solid defense. Coming from the Big Ten there. Pretty cool matchup, though, in the Red Box Bowl. Just disappointing when I see, home teams. I hate that. So California pretty much being home here. But I under a touchdown. -6 for Cal. Under a touchdown. I'm liking it. Mississippi State and Louisville. Louisville looked a lot better in the beginning of the year. Mississippi State, tough year, but look at who they played. Really disappointing, I guess. But if you look at who they played, it was a tough road. I like Mississippi State in this one. They're definitely better on defense. Louisville's offense could be scary, could be sneaky, but Mississippi State going against that defense, I think they generate enough offense here. I kind of like them -3.5, the Music City Bowl. I like Mississippi State. You look at SEC versus ACC here. You got to go with the SEC. You got to go. It's just much better. I think this is just an easier challenge for Mississippi State than what they've been dealing with. So I do like Mississippi State here, -3.5, 37-24 in the Music City Bowl. Next game is Wake Forest and Michigan State. This should be a good one. Another one of those toss-up games. The New Era Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium, very cool one. So actually looking forward to this one because Wake Forest, had the bright moments of the year, then it kind of fell apart later. I'm looking to see what type of game this is because Wake Forest is an offensive type of team. Michigan State's, I guess, kind of balanced more towards the defense, but been really disappointing this year. I was surprised, they squeezed into a bowl game here, but I like Wake Forest's offense. The question is, can Michigan State keep up in this one? Wake Forest is actually the underdogs here, 3.5, but I like Wake Forest. Can Michigan State keep up? That's the question, but it is a toss-up game. Should be an interesting one. Some of these games I'm looking forward to more than, like some of those New Year's Day games, which is weird. I shouldn't be feeling like that, but Temple and North Carolina in the Military Bowl. I like North Carolina 34-26. Let's see what Temple had a pretty good season. Let's see what they can do outside of the AAC. North Carolina, a very tough schedule, pretty inconsistent. But if you give them this much time, it's not a whole bunch of time. It's in one of those earlier bowl games, I suppose. But give them some time to game plan. I think they'll get it together here, and they're going to score on you. Temple's been kind of more of that defensive AAC team. Being a defensive team in a somewhat weaker conference is definitely getting better. Not necessarily a good thing here going against a team like North Carolina. So I got them winning 34-26, win by 8, -5.5. Not one that I love, obviously, because it's kind of close, but it's one that, I think they'll be able to cover that there in the Military Bowl. So I like North Carolina. Eastern Michigan and Pittsburgh. I do like Pittsburgh a lot in this one. In the Quick Lane Bowl, the only downside is the Quick Lane Bowl is in Detroit, Michigan. Eastern Michigan almost home here. But Pittsburgh is they kind of slow down at the end of the year, but they are the much better team here. Much better team. Odd matchup in my opinion. I got a big win for Pittsburgh, 40-20. So I think they'll cover that 11. They're -11. I think they'll cover it, so they should be okay here. Another one of those weird matchups. Next game, a matchup that I like a lot. This is a game I'm looking forward to. It should be a good game here in the Boca Raton Bowl. And that's a pretty cool bowl logo there. But SMU 34, FAU 32. And this one is another one of those toss-up games. If you want to play the Bowl Mania, there's a link, we'll put a link down in the comments in the description. You have to, sometimes you have to make your confidence in those. And if that's the case, this would probably be towards that one confidence out of all the bowl games. So that's that good of a game. It's that good of a game. So we'll definitely see a lot of offense. This one could even be more. But Lane Kiffin taking the Ole Miss job, and I think that could hurt FAU. That could be the difference there. But yeah, Florida, I guess more of the home game for them. Florida Atlantic, more of the home game for them. SMU's -3. It's a toss-up. I'm back and forth on this one. So that's why I definitely had to talk about this one because it's a really good game. It's a toss-up. I took SMU. I think they just have that edge in offense. That's what it is. I think they have that edge on the offense side of the ball there. So I went with SMU. And we'll take a look at the rest of the games I did not get to. Just a straight-up picks real quick. I'm confident about Buffalo over Charlotte. Confident with Buffalo. Utah State over Kent State. Utah State should be fine in that one. Kent State got real good at the end of the year. It's a sneaky team, but Jordan Love, looking forward to watching him. I take Utah State. San Diego State over Central Michigan. I definitely like San Diego State in that one. Georgia Southern over Liberty. Arkansas State over FIU. That's one of those toss-up games. One of those low-confidence games, but I got Arkansas State beating Florida International. Central Florida should have no problem against Marshall. BYU over Hawaii. That should be a pretty good game. I think BYU's the better team. Well-balanced team. It is in Hawaii Bowl, so that makes things interesting. But I still like BYU because it's the better team. Miami over LA Tech. LA Tech had a really good season. Miami very, very disappointing, especially down the stretch. Still going with Miami. It's tough for me to go with Miami, but I'm going with them because they got much more talent. This really never really means they win, but I got to go with the Hurricanes. They got to win that game. Western Kentucky over Western Michigan. Definitely like Western Kentucky in that one. Wyoming over Georgia State. One that could go either way, but confident with Wyoming. Nevada, Ohio is another one of those ones that it's a toss-up. I see Ohio's favored in that game by a pretty good amount, but I was feeling Nevada on that one. But again, it's a toss-up. Tulane over Southern Miss. Pretty impressive season from Tulane. And Louisiana Lafayette over Miami of Ohio. So that's the rest of the bowl games. If you guys want to discuss some of these games in the comments, yeah, feel free. Love to talk about these. We'll have my playoff predictions in a separate video. We'll predict the scores of the semifinal games, and then I'll predict my final in that game. We're also going to summarize my favorite spread, my favorite bet picks of bowl season. Did pretty well last year in those, so that'll be a separate video coming down the line as well. We'd like to figure out who's sitting out, who's healthy, who's not, those types of things. I wanted to get this video out so we can discuss while we have the time before bowl game season. Please subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it. Click that like button. Check us out on Twitter. There's a link in the description and the comments for all kinds of helpful things. If you want to see my final rankings, there's a link in the comments for that. If you want to join the Bowl Picks group on ESPN, free to play, we'll see who the winner is. You can click that link in the comments. So play along, Join us for all of our other videos, NFL and college football. Please subscribe. That'll help us out a bunch. But that's going to do it for this one. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.